A little bit more butter. And then we're going to finish it off with some red wine. Then last but not least, fresh lemon. I know in South America, the people there like to put lemon with their meat, their red meats. Brings out the flavor. It's very good for you. That meat is ready now, so I'm going to take it out. Just put it on top of your vegetables there. Let that sauce finish cooking. A little bit more goat's cheese. And just to give it a nice bit of color, some red pepper. Then here's our sauce with its garnish. Just some red wine, olives, fresh cherry tomatoes. A little bit of garnish. And this is our beef fillet with the roasted red peppers, the broccoli, red wine tomato sauce.
Hello, my name is Jason Saul and this is Erica Saul, and welcome to ENN Network, the most informal news channel you've ever encountered in your life. We bring you stories that are related solely on the environment. We'll be bringing you interviews and current news events. We will never talk about terrorism unless it's environmental terrorism, which I expect is going to be an upcoming event in our near future, as people become more and more desperate to stop the madness that is kind of driving this world. There's maybe 2 or 3 really hot trending stories at the moment, intermixed with a bunch of aggregate stories. We're going to first talk a bit of local news. So on Monday, or was it Tuesday, sorry, the coal-fire power stations had their license for water suspended. Now, this water story is an ongoing, growing situation here in South Africa. Later in the week, a huge report came out in the Western Cape saying that the Western Cape is facing severe drought. This goes hand in hand with the events going up in the Northern Cape, hand in hand with the events going up in KZN. Water is becoming more and more scarce. The cycles that normally would replenish our supplies are changing in quite a dramatic fashion. Of interest, this is not just a localized event here to South Africa. You can actually see that this is starting to occur all over the world, which actually kind of links some of our international stories that are happening at the moment. So they were basically talking about the effects of climate change on amphibians, as well as the increase in copper content in all aquifers, so river aquifers. The study was done in Australia, but then confirmed again also to be happening in the States. They are seeing mass kind of deaths of most large amphibians. These are your toads, your frogs, and due to shifting weather patterns, too much heat, when they do find a source of water, the copper levels in the water make it no longer suitable for them to exist, and frogs are dying out in the numbers. And if that doesn't alarm you, then we have the exact same story coming through from a study that is done inside of the States. Basically, they've been picking up a lot of dolphin deaths, not just washed up dolphins, but washed up baby dolphins. And you know, the level and intensity and frequency of these kind of stories are becoming more and more and more commonplace. A study was done, and now you and I would think that this should be fairly common knowledge, but this study was so necessary and it was completed, and the study basically highlighted that it is not possible for us to live or cohabit this planet with the focus of everything that we do focus on growth. So now that sounds kind of normal to me and you, but this study is what's going to be utilized to start to change law, to start to challenge companies, to start to challenge kind of reserve banks that always have a perpetual growth focus. They're always saying we must grow, we must grow, we must expand, populations must always climb. They panic about should a population start to descend. But the fact of the matter is that this growth is what is fueling this massive reliance on fossil fuels. Not only fossil fuels, it's fueling this massive pollution that we're doing, which is now, as you can see, impacting amphibians, impacting dolphins. And then just on Thursday, the report came out that it was impacting bees. So that they were trying to figure out what colony, why bees were kind of dying from colony collapse. And basically it's now proven that the increased temperature is affecting a primary, what did they call it, a bacteria that is found inside of the bees, and the bees are in fact starting to die out in their droves, not because necessarily environmental toxicity, which is your GMO stuff, Roundup, all that kind of stuff, but also because of shifting climate. Shifting climate is actually changing various different fungals and bacteria that the bees naturally have, which is a big problem. So now even Einstein said, you know, if you lose your bees, the world will end shortly thereafter, because bees are a key corner species. On Wednesday, a story came out about the impact of fin harvesting on sharks. And how it was decimating the oceans by wiping out apex predators. But then also the very next day, a story was released about how in Malaysia they are taking fishing and illegal fishing so seriously that they are confiscating boats and blowing them up to make reefs. And so far they were saying they've done something like 64 boats. They've confiscated off illegal fishermen and they sink them. They don't ask questions. They don't, you know, there's no big court battles. They get the people off the boat. They drag the boat to their nearest reef and they blow it up. And you're going to see more and more of this happening because people are starting to realize the impact that we're having on the ocean. Now let's not forget that this week is International Recycling Week. So obviously in that line you had a lot of stories coming out that are related to the levels of plastic in the oceans. You're having stories coming out in relation to the kind of lifespan that plastics have while they're sitting in the environment. And you know, we already picked up that story from late last week in relation to how the volume of plastic in the sea is outnumbering sea life something like 4-1. And the worst part is that even should the plastic break down, so they're quantifying it by, say, the level of output given from a land area, but so even if you were to break down the big bottles and it's the actual microparticles that are getting into the oceans that are causing a lot of the difficulties. And you know, this is becoming more and more of a problem. People don't recycle. People continue to manufacture waste in everything, pretty much everything that we do. So if you summarize all of those kind of stories, you take a look at the bees, where first of all we were causing colony collapse with the use of pesticides. And then in addition to those pesticides, it was actually nicotine-based pesticides, which of course was a product of Monsanto. Thank you, Monsanto, for screwing up another thing. And then you take a look at the amphibians, because of our impact on the environment, the amphibians are starting to feel the impacts and are wiping out. And then the increase of copper in the water from mining activities, from, you know, our impact is starting to show more and more.
The way a normal project would work, where they would come and negotiate because they'd have an agenda. They want to come in here and they want to start a AIDS orphanage or something like that. They would go to the chief and they'd say to the chief, we want to start up an AIDS orphanage and we want to try and employ some people and educate some people and we want to take care of all your AIDS orphans and for that we want some land. And the chief would think about it seriously and he would feel important and say, yes, it's a good idea, we need these things. And there would be this trade-off. But in a way, the project would then be beheld to the chief. Whereas we kind of came through the back door here. Firstly, because I came in here with a preconceived idea that this whole tribal system or traditional system was flawed anyway, and it failed. So I came in here with kind of really a judgment against this whole traditional system and things like that, you know, from what I'd heard, which is really unfair, but that's how I came in here. I sort of touched a little bit on what Contra Lesser, which is the Concrete Traditional Leaders, was all about, and it looked dodgy. In a sense, it was quite rude. I should have gone to the great place of this specific council and said, I'm here to do this. The other thing was, having worked in the Transkei before, worked in many other countries in Africa as well, is that you sort of also believe in the bush telegraph. And I sort of thought, well, what I'm doing, if it's important enough, then somebody will hear about it and they'll come and find me and say, let's meet, sort of thing, which didn't happen. So either the bush telephones didn't get there, or I just haven't been doing enough important stuff really at that level. So what that did for the project anyway was, I think, was quite beneficial in that journey of understanding what these problems are all about, because we didn't have to work to anybody's agenda or had to deliver anything to anybody. While I was busy, not sure what I was really doing, just building this island in the middle of this place that I wasn't familiar with, having never been as close to the coast. I'd worked up in Ngcobo and places like that several years before. To put in a relatively self-sustainable place and hoping that people would just be flocked and would just feel there's some kind of magnetic pull to this place, and we could teach people how to eat and to respect water and soil, and building and things like that, and get their houses stronger, which was really naive of me, I think, in hindsight. I think people are used to being herded in a way, and they just didn't. So they thought, in order to engage with me, they'd have to pay me. In other words, if they want to come and make bricks, they'd have to pay me to do that, which was never in my mind, but I didn't articulate that very well, I think. So all this time I'm busy developing these gardens, I'm busy building these buildings, and sorting out these water issues and things like that. And at the same time, I'm watching it collapse around me on the greater scale. The municipality falling to pieces, the water systems falling to pieces, understanding how that's affected the whole dynamics of the community. Because I'm living inside this place and I'm seeing, I've done this before in other places in other parts of Africa, but never with such a social dysfunctionality, which is what we've got here. So watching people's buildings fall down, and not jumping in these things and trying to save everybody, but just saying, well, tough. You know, you don't, until you decide to integrate, it's what's going to happen. Of course, because what then, whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, but this main chief who was head of Contra Lesser, who I was working with, died, and left this huge void standing that we had started, which was about leadership. And he completely saw things the way that I saw things, of understanding that present leadership was flawed and had to be nurtured, and then to start focusing on the next leadership, the children, and to create leadership schools for these guys to come through so we can start to shift the whole thing around. Everything is based on oil.
Yeah.
Our monetary system, our judicial system, our education systems, everything on this table. Well, this is now second generation, so that's now no longer oil required. But that's our existence. Oil comes crash. I mean, we see it. I mean, yesterday, I mean, the Dow Jones fell another 3.5% yesterday. You know, you look across the board in the American markets, it's just red. They just crashed. Oil organizations went down 4 to 5%. They're just coming crashing down, and it's happening every day. They're totally overinflated because they're based on where they think the oil reserves are, not where the oil, because everybody's overselling their oil. They're saying, oh no, we've got loads of it still, because they don't want to create panic. We're into these long wars now. I mean, when you've got a country like America that's a net importer of oil, when they produce, I think about 2 to 3, not even 2% probably anymore, of the world's oil. But they use 25% of the world's oil. I mean, they have to control the world. The economy is based on it. They have to control the world's oil, which means they have to be in war. So that's what's going to go on. I mean, it's not going to stop. The only thing that's going to stop it, when there's no more oil to put in the ship, the HSS Indomitable or whatever it's called, to get it across the ocean anymore, that's when it's all going to come grinding to a halt. So we go back to this governance you're talking about. It's all based on central control. But what happens when that central control is broken? The most recent example of that happening was when Katrina went into New Orleans. And it cut off, in a first world country, okay, it cut off Washington, D.C. And within hours, people turned on people. Shops were pillaged. Next thing, people just turned on people. Okay, and that's what happens when there's chaos, when there's no more control, there's no one. So now, in a third world or developing country, when suddenly that power line is cut, it's going to be mayhem. Unless we can shift it, and we can get people and communities, let's call them transition, whatever we want to call them, all these words have been banning around, where they are taking care of themselves. Where they're not reliant upon the central system of control, which is money. And so there's something that's gone. You see, in our conditioning, and we are so conditioned, we have become codependent, where we depend upon each other. And this is really it's a disease. If we use which I do often, I use an analogy of a forest. And we see these forests where they're codependent, where the trees cross over each other and they stop the flow of air through each other, and they stop the growth. And we've seen it here. There's so much evasive stuff comes in. But if you look at a forest that each tree stands strong on its own, and then as a collective, it's incredibly strong. It's a strong, healthy environment. And it's a three-dimensional living thing then. And if we can create that where people can stand strong on their own as individuals, and then as a community, they're really, really strong. And they do things out of free will. Then we can shift the consciousness. But that goes against the religious beliefs, because that's all about codependency. I mean, goodness, it's so disempowering. It's there's this fellow who died for my sins. For goodness sakes, I'll die for my own sins. It's very disempowering, and that's where it starts. And it's been so successful. It's indoctrinated in this. I mean, in these areas that I am in. I mean, this religion that's used here now, several versions of Christianity that are all over these areas that I'm in here. Unbelievable, the fear and the obsession with death. And the amount of resources they could put into death. And this dignity in death, but where's the dignity in life? And that's what we need to be focusing on. Is that every moment that we have this gift of living, and let's make it count. Let's be authentic. But we all put our belief in old mutual and funeral schemes for our death, so we can be remembered. But these guys who have they throw these huge parties. They spent their life beating their wives, abusing their children. But they had this incredible funeral, man. It was huge. You should have seen it. Strong Muti there. No. It's disgraceful. Let's put that dignity into life now. And I really do believe that in this religion that existed before we came along with this whole sort of Christianity trip and things like that, was this incredible dynamic relationship between the earth and the people in Africa. They call it Kwamata or something like that, and it's brilliant. It's so naive. It's brilliant because it's got counterbalance. It's just based in love and respect. And if you respect the sun for rising, for setting, you respect the seasons. You show respect to the animal you kill to nurture yourself. You respect your spouse or your kids. Suddenly here come these guys and saying, "Oh, hold on, you guys are savages unless you bow down to this figure here. That's it. You're going to go and die a miserable death in hell and things like it." And how could people come here with anything but love anyway? Because that's all we believe in is love. Okay, so this is how people are building here. People without much means, which is called a wattle and daub. So here you've got your wattle, which is your wooden framework, and then they're packing in the daub, which is the clay, in here. Now, historically, this is a brilliant way to build. I mean, a lot of your Tudor houses in the United Kingdom, first weather, use this system. Okay, and they've lasted for hundreds and hundreds of years. This house won't last a year. Okay, and they have to redo it. What I'd like to propose that the way that this has been mixed, the way it's been mixed in, there's not much intention going into this. It shows a victim mentality within the people, because if this clay was worked through properly, in other words, it was kneaded like you knead bread, and they put a bit of some dry grass in it, or some mealie husks and things like that into it, it would create clay pits and create a render. That's part of who they are, and their yearly existence, their yearly rebirthing. Yeah, this is clay which we've got locally here. Now, it's quite a strong clay actually, prone to cracking, but it could be worked through a lot better. You fill this with your mix, okay, with a very little bit amount of water, and then you'll put this on it, and you'll push it down, which is your primary compaction. All right. Then take that over, and then this is where you'll notice the bottom is coming up. Yes. So it's compacting from the bottom. So there's your compaction. Alright, so it's compacting up. Up it goes, and it pops the brick out, which should be up there now. 2 people could make a brick every 17 seconds. Yeah. But you get machines now that can do 12 bricks at once, doing the same. But the nice thing about it is that, as opposed to the machines that can make 1,500 bricks a day, there's a huge effect on the environment, where you're actually getting, I mean, that's a hungry machine, and where you're getting that material from. Whereas this here, it's more hand. You can use the foundations of your building to build the walls up. It doesn't have to have such a negative effect on the environment. They're not fully set yet, so I don't want to mess with them too much. So it's 240 mils long, and it's 100 high, and it's 140 wide, which from an engineering perspective is perfect for a wall. You can support a roof with this lightweight roof, and it'll be fine. This is going to set for about 3 weeks. This digester, which I designed, it's a closed bag. Well, it's got an inlet and an outlet and a gas outlet. So it's made from reinforced PVC, which is the same material as you'll make a jumping castle from. And it's shaped. The shape of it is like a loaf of bread. It's risen. So it has the convex top on it, and everything else is squared. It fits into this frame here that I just built with brick. And how it works is that it comes from the toilets. The waste comes into the I can also feed it with green material, which produces most of. If I really want to get a lot of push my my methane levels up, I'll feed it with some bananas or stuff like that, which boosts it. It comes in here, and inside here I have a live culture, which is anaerobic, which means that it exists without oxygen. Okay, so it's the digestion process is anaerobic as opposed to aerobic, which is like your composting loos and things like this. So the microbes that exist inside here break down the waste very, very efficiently, and the energy that comes out of that is the methane gas. Now, if you can smell, Judy, which it's almost a composty smell. There's not necessarily a sewage smell, but there's a slight composty smell. If you come close down here, you could almost smell, you could smell the gas as well, which is when you burn it, there's no smell whatsoever. Again, it's a composty one. It's not necessarily unpleasant. We'll fill this with green material, with anything, and we'll just get some water and shove it down. It's a big stomach. That's how it really works. There's the enzymes that are breaking down the material inside there. And from that they create methane gas. And they create high nutrient water. Now there have been sort of many household biodigestion systems that are coming out. There are about 6 cubic meters prefabricated systems that cost probably about 35,000, 40,000 rands. And they're not high gas yielding, but what they are doing is they're breaking down the water, the black water, the effluent water, which is really critical. And so therefore the principles are very much along these lines. This is just a bit more rudimentary. And so from here, the water will go through a sand filter, which is what this is, which we've got. Obviously there's high nutrients in here. We've still got about 5 to 7% pathogens, which is your E. coli, etc., coming into here, which then these plant life will take it out. So it'll come into here, it will filtrate down through a slow sand filter. Underneath here, about a meter down, there's a hole, and it'll come up here, which this is full of shells like this, and charcoal, which then absorb the last remnants of pathogens. Okay, that's what this one, and the reeds, of course, as well, take out anything. So it's we really have removed as much. I mean, if there's anything left, it's absolute trace elements. The water will gather in here and settle, and then will slowly gravitate down through our trees and our orchards, which are down that side, which is high nutrient water, which you can drink. It'll give you a bit of a stomach ache because it's high in nutrients, but certainly nothing poisonous. And but it's very good for growth of the trees and plants. We've got coffee trees down there and a loquat tree, and we're definitely seeing pronounced growth as to the other trees that we have around here that are not enjoying these high nutrients that we're getting out of here. So ultimately what you'd like to have is say 3 or 4 houses together, all the waste leading into a digester, which then would lead into an orchard, oranges or whatever, which would then go to provide food for the house, provide the energy for the gas, as well as, most importantly in my mind, is processing the black water and not getting it into the coffee trees in this space as well, which is got about another 3 years to go before they start producing. And then we've got climbing beans all over the place, which we're getting a huge amount of food from, plus our loofahs, which we eat when they're still young. And then we've got our pigeon peas as well, plus all our herbs and that. And then we go all the way down where we've got our ground covers. This is what we can call an aerated bed. It's off the ground. We've got green material at the very bottom, which is composting, and then we've got which is a long nutrient release bed, which is like a double dug bed. And then above it we've got layers where we've got decomposing materials at various stages, plus cow manure. That's very rich if you look at that. If we look around here, of course, sod's law, we won't find any, but there's worms everywhere as well that are working away. Perhaps if we look at one of the other ones. And then we cover that all up. Right now, because it's winter, we have quite a bit of dew. And this mulch here is holding that water, because we're in drought now, is holding that water on the ground. Plus the kind of growth here, we've got corianders and cresses, which are low on the ground and not using up too much of the precious nutrients. But this is where we have problems, where we have invasive plants like this guavadilla, which just comes on and takes over.
But it does produce fruit that you eat.
It produces fruit, but it stops the oxygen from getting to these plants. So this needs to be managed a bit. In this garden here, we've got not just fruit that's for eating, but it's to attract other insects that eat aphids and things like that, like the marigold, which the scent Some of these invasive pests don't like the smell of, and it attracts other ones which then also eat other pests. So it's a very strong deterrent for an organic garden. There's a certain amount of weeds in here as well. If we look here, these are some weeds growing there. We allow that. We share the garden. We've got nice cloves growing as well, which is really good. On the sides here, we got roots creating networks, holding everything inside here. In this one here, we got mints, and we got some gooseberries over there. Smells lovely. If you're into that, and we can also put strawberries in some gardens at the bottom there. We've got strawberries holding the whole thing together. So we've got garden and garden. Yeah, peanuts here, which are coming good soon. In about 2 weeks' time we can harvest these. And carrots are coming right as well now. The seeds there, the marigolds are now going to seed, which I'll just distribute. Okay, so this is our dam, which already now we're a month and a half into the dry season, and we're seeing quite a bit of depletion of the water already. But last year we just managed to survive with it, but this year we've got more fish in it, so it's going to be interesting to see. Some of the fish are already at edible size. Just haven't worked out to catch the buggers yet. There's some turtles in here as well, frogs. So it's quite diverse. Turtles take out the small fish to try and keep the population down a bit. You can see that each rice has its own little, each grain of rice has a little sheath that exists in. Here's your grain of rice. Our food production has been up about 20 to 30% since we've had the bees here. We were getting some bees still before we put the hive here from the forest, but this hive is about 6-7 months old now and is very, very active. We've already put the second super on the top. So the super is where our honey lives. So the big box at the bottom is the bees' honey, where the queen lives, and then above there is where when that's full, they move up, and that's when we harvest our honey. So the middle one is now full, and the top one is half full now. And what we'll do is, as we go into winter now, the activity will be less and less, and we'll put on one more super, I think, and then we'll harvest the honey in the springtime. So now we're not just looking at some kind of one-dimensional garden. We're taking it to all different, and we're utilizing all of it, and we're rotating them all the time, and then also protecting them through the winter months. So it's just being conscious, but certainly there's a lot less energy is put into this garden as it develops more and more and more, and nature is allowed to do her thing, which is what's really exciting about it. And it truly, I do believe in about 2 years' time, it will be a food forest.
We have planted millions of seeds in minds and hearts that are sprouting consciousness around what we are doing, what we need to do, and how we can save ourselves from, as my good friend Kumi Naidoo, one of my heroes and the first African head of Greenpeace, says, we are sleepwalking into a disaster of unmitigated proportion, where our children and theirs will pay the price of our greed, our ignorance, and our inability to change. Yet people around the world are realizing this. If William Kamkwamba, a 14-year-old Malawian, can build a working wind turbine, first to power his own house and then eventually his whole village, then surely the rest of us can find some solutions. There's a fabulous book on this young man called The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, and he's now an MIT student. China leading the way in the manufacture and installation of wind turbines. Nearly 3/4 of all of their clean energy investments are now wind. And in the United States, wind power has been the largest source of renewable electricity for the last several years. But there's also an incredible future for solar. The market is now growing at about 7 times the predicted pace. Did you know that every single hour, enough solar energy hits the Earth to meet the world's energy demands for a year? And here in South Africa, we have all of this available to us. And in North Africa, this ambitious supergrid hopes to take solar energy not just down to sub-Saharan Africa, but into Europe as well. Geothermal power plants Amazing. They harness the heat of the earth to provide clean energy. And here, Iceland's leading the way. In China, every single person has to plant 3 trees every single year. And in India, massive school programs as we do here. The time for action is right now. So folks, whilst most of our governments are MIA and corporate greed continues to rape and pillage planet's resources, and many slumber on unconsciously, can we here at Sustain Our Africa agree? We are the change agents, and together we can make the necessary changes to avoid more suffering so that we can have enough for all forever.
My name is Marcus Asner, and I'm a lawyer in New York. From 2000 to 2009, I was a federal prosecutor in Manhattan, and I prosecuted, among other things, the Arnold Benjes rock lobster and Patagonian toothfish case.
And in your country, do you get a lot of cases that are where the fisheries crimes?
We get some, and yes, we have a pretty robust enforcement network. The Lacey Act is really, I think, I'd like to say it's the envy of the world. And that
Can you describe it?
Sure. What it is it makes it a crime. It does a number of things, but what it does is it makes it a crime to import into the United States fish, wildlife, and timber that's been harvested in violation of local law. And that local law can include the law of a foreign country, for example.
And James Benjes was prosecuted under that?
He was prosecuted under the Lacey Act, under conspiracy to violate the Lacey Act, and smuggling, and then smuggling is a substantive violation as well.
Okay. Do you find this is quite effective in preventing corruption in the States?
I wouldn't say it's so much effective in preventing corruption. I think what it is effective in doing is allowing us to use the federal criminal system to help prosecute and investigate instances where people are trying to take advantage of borders to import into areas things that have been harvested in violation of other jurisdictions' laws. And that itself is a very, very powerful tool.
Do you find, as a legal professional, is your main motivation because you enjoy the legality of it, and that, or is your main motivation that in this case you're actually doing something for the planet?
I think I'm probably shallower than all of that. When I was a prosecutor, I just wanted to go get the bad guys. And it didn't really matter to me whether it was a fish case or a narcotics case or a major white-collar fraud. I just liked pulling together the material, investigating the hell out of it, and taking down the bad guys.
Do you worry about what's happening to the planet, or doesn't it come past your door very often?
Yeah, I do worry about it. And look, I mean, I gave you a very shallow answer a moment ago. Of course I worry about it. And you know, one of the nice things about being a prosecutor, particularly in the United States and particularly in the Southern District of New York, is you really fundamentally believe that you wear the white hat and that your job is to protect those who need protection from bad guys. And in the instance of the Benjes case, we had the added advantage of really setting a precedent that does help protect the planet.
In 1988, that's when we had Bill Molson, the founder of permaculture, who came from Australia. He held a workshop in Botswana on permaculture, and 2 of our guys, who are now our trustees, went to attend the workshop. And then after the workshop, that's when they turned this farm into a training center. And their main focus was permaculture. Permaculture means permanent agriculture, but it can be defined in many ways. Some say it's an approach to designing system which will give sustainable rewards. Right now, as permaculture is growing up, we are now slowly getting into urban communities. We use natural resources for the production of our crops. Like for instance, For soil improving, we use this type of composting. So we just harvest fresh cow dung, and then we put it in this container, we perforate it, and then put the dung in, and then introduce worms. After a period of 3 months, the worms will be doing the decomposition. They will be decomposing the stuff, and then after 3 months it will be ready. Then we take it and then put it in sieves. We mix with sand and then pot it. Then after those 3 months, the worms will be in abundance, and we could use them for feeding our poultry, and the extra we can take it for fishing or for fishing or for selling, or we could introduce them in the garden, because they will be in abundance. Nature is working for us.
Okay.
Sure. And then this system is called the container garden. It's ideal for those people who are residing in flats, who doesn't have where to do the cultivation. We just fill in an old sack with compost and a bit of soil. Then you perforate it and then you plant your vegetables. You're home and dry. And if you think of going for a holiday resort somewhere, you just take it and then put it at the back of your truck. Then you'll be having fresh vegetables with you. These are herbs. Herbs are used in various ways. Some are used for culinary, some has got medicinal properties, some are used as repellents if planted with vegetables. For instance, we have this one. It's called Nasturtium. Some use it as just a flower, but it has got more properties than just being a flower. We use it to deworm our livestock. It's very, very, very useful. And for human beings, if you have got upset stomach, take the flowers and then chew them, swallow the juice. If you have got eye ailments, you could just take the flowers and then you put them in boiling water, let it cool, and then bath your eyes. It helps a lot. Then we have celery. This one we use it as a repellent again if planted with the brassicas. And apart from that, on medicinal properties, it suppresses BP. One is suffering from BP. If he takes this one regular on his or her diet, it reduces BP.
What is BP?
Blood pressure.
Okay.
Blood pressure.
Celery.
Celery. And then this one is called thyme. Thyme, variegated thyme. This one is used for cooking, in fact. Apart from cooking, it has got many medicinal uses again. You could use it for whooping cough, you could use it for bronchitis, you could use it for headaches, or for boosting up one's immune system. If one, especially those, it could be AIDS victims, if they take this one, it helps them to boost their immune system. The lifespan will be a little bit prolonged if they take this one regular on their diet. It's very, very useful. Mint is in different varieties. We've got spearmint, we've got black mint, we've got peppermint. Right. It is used for sore throat. If somebody is suffering from sore throat, cold, flu, you could use this one. Just take it as herbal tea. Or if somebody is suffering from dizziness, you could just take a herbal tea of mint. It helps a lot. And then apart from that, if planted under fruit trees, it helps as a repellent of fruit flies. Plus, it's a very good soil binder. Wherever there is a little erosion taking place, if you plant it, it binds up the soil very well. That it reduces soil erosion. Called lemongrass. Lemon. Maybe the word lemongrass comes from that it has got a lemon flavor, and it smoothens the skin. Especially with the ladies, they like this one. Yeah. Acacia trees, they are termed as legumes. We use them in agroforestry, whereby we mix crops and trees. They are nitrogen fixers and they are fodder. They can be used as windbreak. It doesn't shed the field. If planted with the crops tend to do very well. They can even grow very nice under these trees. They are very, very friendly.
Except for the thorns.
Sure. The group is the poor rural farmers who doesn't have enough cash maybe to buy these so-called barbed wires. One could resort to this type of trees called Doviaris scapula. It makes a very good live fence if planted close. It develops thorns, and by so doing it inhibits goats, donkeys to enter in a field. Very, very useful. And apart from being a shield, it produces fruits which could be taken, and they're very, very nice, very rich in vitamin C. For it. We have here is we have indigenous trees, be it indigenous fruit trees and then trees, and then we've got exotic trees, fruit trees and not fruit trees, and we have passion fruits and we have herbs. But generally, they are for generating income and improving sites within Fambizanai. Wherever we feel like there's bare land, we could just take them and then plant them to improve the site.
How does it improve the site?
Whenever a site is very bare, if you've got a massive downpour of rainfall, erosion takes place. But if you plant trees, the roots helps to bar the runoff and then let the water penetrate into the soil. And you could even introduce grass. You plant trees and then you plant grass. By so doing, erosion is minimized. That's how it improves the site. We plant our crops diversified. The reason being that we are trying to encourage a symbiosis friendship, whereby if you have got a nitrogen fixer, that nitrogen fixer will be fixing nitrogen, thereby benefiting the neighbor. It could be, in this case, it could be spinach. The nitrogen that is left by this bean is taken by the spinach, right? And at the same time, if I've got an outbreak of a certain disease, if that disease attacks spinach, at least you are left with beans. But if you've got just a field of spinach, if that disease comes, it wipes away everything and you are left with nothing. Those are the advantages of diversifying. And at the same time, we encourage farmers to cover the soil. The reason being that if the soil is covered, there is little runoff. And at the same time, there is much percolation. The temperature of the soil remains constant when the soil is covered. There is little evaporation. And at the same time, it decomposes as time goes by. It decomposes, and by so doing, it will be adding fertility into the soil.
So it's just grass?
You could use grass, you could use dead leaves, you could use live mulch, whatever you have. Because we are saying it depends with the place you are. If you are in region 1, if you are in region 4, whatever you have there, make use of it. If you don't have even grass or leaves or whatever, you could use even stone mulching. But that one is ideal under fruit trees. You could use stone mulching. We also encourage farmers to dot a few fruit trees in their fields or in their gardens.
Right.
If you compare the production that you get from one tree and the production that you get on a piece of land planted vegetables, you could see that from a tree you get huge sums of money. So we encourage farmers to dot a few fruit trees into their system for boosting income.
Is this what kind of tree is this one?
It's macadamia nut.
Which one?
That one. Macadamia nut.
That looks like
Very, very expensive. A kg you could buy it at least something like $300 and something dollars. Very, very expensive. Okay, this one is called Lucina. It's a nitrogen fixer, and at the same time it's fodder. At the same time it's working as hedge here. In permaculture we say at least one element should serve main functions. Right. So apart from just being hedge here, it is barring diseases, the other diseases that travel with wind like blight. So whenever you have a hedge in your garden, that disease could be trapped here and then doesn't get to your vegetables or crops or whatever. At this time of the year there is outbreak of pests. Vegetables doesn't do very well. We are leaving this so that we could feed our livestock because we believe in recycling. We take waste from the garden and then we feed our livestock, and then in return we get manure. We put it on a compost, we reapply it into the garden. So it's sort of a cycle. You could see some of the farmers taking off these old vegetables, throwing them away. That's not a good idea. Recycle it so that it gives benefits again back to that land where you have harvested it. And then after that you put a heavy feeder, it could be maize, so that it makes use of the nitrogen that is left by the prior plant.
Yeah.
It's a peach. It's called the elderberry. The flowers are used if somebody is suffering from a heavy flu. You could use those flowers. And the leaves are used for making compost, very rich in nitrogen. And you could use it as hedge again. So hedges are very, very important for stopping wind erosion.
Yeah.
And trees should be shaped in a way that it will become easy for one to harvest. It will become easy for one to spray. So we don't encourage farmers to leave trees growing high up. It will be very difficult for them to harvest. And at the same time, they end up having their kids having fractures because they climb up there, which is very, very much dangerous. So in the necessary course that we give, we train them that they should train that tree. A tree can behave in the way you want if you train it, but if you leave it, it will give you problems. So this is the result of training. The branches are growing sidewise. It's very easy to harvest. You can even harvest when you are standing. You can even spray when you are standing. We make organic remedies. You could spray with hot pepper mixed with a bit of soap, or you could use tephrosia. Tephrosia is one of the most tree that we use here, which is more powerful on whatever pests, be it bagrada bugs, be it grasshoppers, be it what. It's a sweeper. We call it a sweeper, and we use it as a last resort. Sure. So whenever we have an outbreak, we use that one. So we make what we call liquid manure. What we simply do is we find a container and then take fresh cow dung and then put it in a container, add a bit of water, and then leave it to stay for about 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, you sort of stir it. Yeah, that's organic farming. And then you take this stuff and then apply it on your crops. You dilute it 1:2 with fresh water, and then you apply it on your crops. But the most powerful one is the one made from chicken droppings. You just harvest the chicken droppings, you put in a sack, and then you put in a drum. You add water. You leave it for 2 weeks again, and then you top dress your crops. But with liquid manure, you go to dilute the one that is made from chicken droppings 1:5 because it's so powerful. If you don't dilute, otherwise everything will be burned. It's very, very powerful.
That's for the flies, hey?
Sure. This is what we call stone mulching. If you've got problems with chickens scratching at the base of a fruit tree, just put stone mulching and you are home and dry. And at the same time, it's acting as a habitat for lizards. Because in organic farming, we also need what we call predators. They help us in reducing the number of pests. So this is a home for lizards, beet snakes. Snakes are very good for controlling mice. So this is the ideal home for our predators. Be prepared for them. If you put fertilizer, yes, you get quick results, but the taste is awful. But if you use manure, it gives a wonderful taste. The taste is just perfect. Remedies on spraying is that whenever you have a customer or you have visitors during the night, you can pick up the leaves because you would have used chilies or hot pepper to do the spraying, which is something eatable. You can just wash that chilies and then you prepare for your customer or for your visitor. But if you use Roga or these synthetic chemicals, if it is 21 days before harvest, you got to wait for those 21 days. But we are having problems because most of the rural farmers, they are money hungry, so they sometimes cheat. Rather than waiting for those 21 days, you could see him waiting for about 15 days and then start harvesting and then selling for the sake of money. But look what will happen. All those people who consume those vegetables will end up having problems just for the sake of money. But if you go organic, you could do spray and then at the same time harvest, no problem.
Fig tree.
It bears fruits and then the fruits turn red when they are ripe. By so doing, they attract birds. And then whenever we have birds in here, birds, rather than feeding on the figs, they could end up picking up pests. It could be butterflies, it could be grasshoppers, they end up picking them. So it's serving main functions here. It's a fruit tree and at the same time it's attracting birds. The birds in return will feed on pests. This is called yarrow. It's a herb. It's called yarrow. Yarrow is a very good plant if mixed with brassicas, because it produces a certain odor which is not liked by pests. So it will be acting as a repellent here. And at the same time, it's a painkiller. If somebody is suffering from anything, you could just take a herbal tea of it and then it eases the pain. It's very good again on bleeding. If somebody is bleeding, you just rub the ribs and then put them on that wound. Automatically the blood will clot. It promotes clotting of the blood. So rather than going to the nearby clinics, we have everything here. Yeah, we have everything. Maybe when somebody is dying, maybe that's when we could rush that person to the hospital. But otherwise, we would have tried all means by using the natural stuff we have here. Okay, this long grass is called vetiver grass. It is a very good soil binder. Wherever there are gullies, or if you want to go on gully reclamation, we advise farmers to use this one, because if it establishes very well, the roots can go up to 1.5 meters. And it bars runoff very, very, very effectively. And apart from controlling soil erosion, we use it to control moles. Whenever we have moles in a piece of land, you just plant a row of these and then a row of those somewhere there. Then you could kill the moles that are found in between. And then those from there or from wherever, they cannot pass through the roots because of the smell it gives. It's not liked by moles. So it's a repeller of moles. The connection of the ecosystem, they'll be seeing everything. So they prefer using these outdoor classrooms. Closely, we build what you call a chicken tractor. It's just a small wooden thing with a bit of fence, so that we keep the chickens at one place and then we put the chickens in. The chickens will scratch, that is picking whatever pest they could find. And at the same time, they'll be dropping their droppings, that is fertilizing the soil, and then weeding. The grazing or the taking of the whatever is growing there, that's fine for us. So after a period of maybe 2 weeks, we move it, put it in another place, we plant something there. It means that place is pest free, it's manured, and it's weeded or it's cultivated already. And that's how we use chickens in the system of permaculture. Then we come to biogas. We encourage farmers to use these biogases in rural areas as a way of getting fuel. Because after independence, most of the farmers, the rural farmers, they went on a rampage of destroying the environment, having piles and piles of firewood, forgetting that tomorrow they won't have anything to resort on. So we are coming on with this project of biogases, whereby they could use fresh cow dung, feed in, and then get methane gas, and use it for cooking and lighting as well.
So there's methane coming out of that tube?
Yeah, sure, there's methane coming out from that.
And where is it going?
It's going into that house and being used in there for cooking and lighting.
Amazing, huh?
So what's in there?
Methane.
Yeah, but like, how do you get it?
Then we have the inlet there, where we pour, it could be kitchen leftovers, fresh cow dung, we mix with a bit of water, it forms porridge form, and then we pour it in. When it comes here, there are those anaerobic bacteria, which does the decomposition. And then the product that we get is methane gas, and then it's piped into that house.
Wow.
The waste it comes through the outlet. We take it as celery. It could be used as liquid manure. Then we take the waste and then we apply it on crops as liquid manure. So in permaculture, we don't throw away anything. We make use of everything. Yeah, sure. Make use of everything.
Beautiful rooster.
We have cattle. Those are the ones that does the grazing. And then we have pigs. We used to have goats. We just buy them and then feed them and then sell them as a way of generating income. We harvest seeds from the fields, be it in the garden, be it in the fields, seeds of trees, seeds of vegetables. We bring them in here, we store them there, and then we could sell them to our visitors or customers. And then the extra we could replant it in the garden so that we become self-reliant. We are promoting self-reliance. We have courses that runs for 1 week, and then some runs for 2 weeks. And these bricks are called the SSBs, soil stabilized blocks. They've got a cement element in them. and they can last for a long time. They are very cheap to produce. And they can stay for a long time as long as they don't get wet. But even if they get wet, because of the properties of cement that is inside, they become much stronger. And as I said earlier on, that our target group is the poor rural farmer. If you look at our structures, they are made in a way that even the rural farmer can afford. Look at the ceiling; it's made of reeds, many reeds that are found in rivers. It's not very expensive. The window frames is just planks, but at least the house is presentable. It's not all that bad. It's presentable. Yeah. So we are encouraging farmers at our level best to use local available resources. Something that doesn't pump out money, because money is used to get these days. Water that is harvested from the roof is diverted into these pits. These are water harvesting pits. We believe in permaculture that water which is above the ground is destructive, because if it joins forces, it can even sweep away a house. You know, the floods. So we try by all means to encourage farmers to let all runoff sink.
Straight away.
Let it sink, and then if it sinks, it becomes productive, because it will rise up again at night, and it will recharge the water tables. Then by so doing, you'll be having perennial boreholes. But if you leave it flowing, going away, it's lost forever. You'll never get it again.
So these are people's houses here, huh?
Yes, these are people's houses. This is just a model village whereby we are trying to show the farmers how they can set up their homes or their houses. We have the bedroom facing the northern hemisphere. It's because the sun here in Zimbabwe, it follows this direction. So if you build a house this way, it means only one room is going to get enough sunlight. The rest will be dark. So if you build it this way, at least all rooms will get enough sunlight. And at the same time, water that is harvested from there is diverted again into that pit. The whole system is called a pit bed. All the kitchen waste are thrown in there, and then with the help of the water that is harvested from the roof into there, it decomposes quickly, and then after that it will be manure. Then we retake the manure and then reapply on beds.
How does the water get there? Through the gutters?
Through this drain.
Sure.
Then the water that is harvested from that bedroom goes through the gutters into that tank. Unfortunately, we are not using the tank so far. Then you could use that water for washing your clothes or your plates.
And what about drinking water?
Drinking water, we get it from an electric borehole. It's somewhere there. And then as for soil preparation, we also have this herb here. It's called stinging nettle. Stinging nettle. We use this one to make liquid manure. Earlier on I said you can make liquid manure out of chicken droppings or fresh cow dung. But if you don't have all those, you could resort to this one. This one or Russian camphor. It's very, very rich in potassium, very rich in nitrogen. What you simply do is you harvest the leaves, you put them in a container. Then due to fermentation, it decomposes. The liquid that you get is what we term liquid manure. And you can dilute it with fresh water, 1:1. And then you apply on your crops. Apart from making liquid manure, it's a very good suppressor of sugar diabetes. If somebody is sugar diabetic, you could resort to this one. Just make a herbal tea, and then you put a bit of honey, then you take it. It suppresses the disease. Blood poisoning, it also helps. And again, it's a repellent of snakes. Those who are in Zimbabwe who are living in region 4 or 5, there are lots of snakes. So you can just make a small jura of this one, because snakes doesn't penetrate on it. Maybe it's because of the spikes over there. It doesn't like snakes, and you could hardly find one crossing this one. So it's a very good repellent of snakes. We don't believe in plowing, because if you turn up the soil, after 5-6 years the soil becomes exhausted. It quickly becomes exhausted. Maybe what we encourage is we can do plowing maybe on staggering years. maybe after 3 years you plow, after 3 years you plow. Or on these other years you could practice what we call minimum tillage, where there is little disturbance of the soil, so that the soil will remain intact. Post building materials. This one is called the rope and washer pump. It's just maybe a simple borehole that is a bit advanced. It sucks water from the permanent water table using this rope. This rope has got washers. These washers. And these washers are at every 75 interval. So it rotates into the water table. Then it comes out through this PVC pipe. The volume of the PVC pipe is just similarly the same with the size of the washers. So whenever it sucks water from the water table, that water eventually comes out as you'll be rotating. It's working.
That's pure water, huh?
Yes, that's pure water.
That's absolutely fantastic, man. Jeez, you guys are so clever.
Yeah.
Good day, my name is Brian. I'm the chef at Monkey Valley Resort. Today we're going to do some healthy, pure, organic and free-range food. We're going to be focusing on stuff that is sustainable for the planet. First dish I'm going to do is called pawpaw, roasted pawpaw and walnut relish. Walnuts has got a lot of protein in it. It's also got a lot of sterols and sterolins, which is good for your immune system. So we're going to make something with that. It doesn't require a lot of cooking. Pawpaw is going to go into the pan for like 5 minutes, and the rest of the stuff is quite raw, and it's easy to make and it's quite tasty. So the first thing I'm going to do is the walnut relish. So you just take a couple of walnuts, just chop it up roughly. Let's throw that into the mixing bowl. A little bit of cinnamon, which is quite good for you, also good for the immune system. Then the onion. As far as I know, onion is natural antibiotic, so that's also good. And it's got a bit of a crunch and a nice sharp taste that it gives to food in general or the relish. So you try to chop the onion nice and fine. That's also going to go in your mixing bowl. Then fresh tomato. We're not going to use the whole tomato, we just want the outside skin. And the skin also contains a lot of vitamins, minerals and so forth, which I don't know all of them. Just chop that up nice and finely. That. Now we're just going to add a little bit of honey, which is very, very good for you. Honey is very, very good. Some honey and then some balsamic vinegar and some fresh coriander. Coriander has got a very earthy sort of smell to it and a very earthy taste, and it's also quite good for your health. Nice green color. Just roughly. Just mix it all in there. And that's more or less the relish finished now. So now we're going to focus on preparing the pawpaw. Just going to peel that. This is quite a big pawpaw. I'm sure you can get smaller pawpaws than this. That's massive. So you just need a little bit of that. I'm just going to cut it there. And then cut it in half. Just going to have to remove these pips. I'm just going to go back into the kitchen, cook this pawpaw, and I'm going to come plate it. Right, so I've gone back, I've gone to the kitchen, cooked the pawpaw. I've just come back, caramelized it, got the natural sugars in the pawpaw to caramelize and give a nice little flavor. I haven't cooked the pawpaw much, so a lot of the nutrients remains in the pawpaw, so it's quite healthy, and it just gives it that little bit of caramelization, that little bit of caramel sort of taste to the pawpaw, which makes the dish quite interesting. So now we're going to plate it. One small little piece of pawpaw is more than enough for a light lunch. Put your pawpaw in the middle of the plate. Then we're going to take some of the relish and just scoop it on top. Just give that a nice stir and just place it nice on top. So you got a soft little pawpaw, sweet little natural fruity flavor, and you got the crunchiness of the nuts. You got tomato in there, you got some honey in there. So everything in here is extremely good for you. There you go, guys, natural food, nicely plated, light lunch. Bon appetit.
I'm Ben Margolis with the Global Call to Action Against Poverty, the world's largest anti-poverty movement. And we're here because we're calling on delegates at the conference to really take urgent action on climate change, because we see our constituents all over the world see that today and not tomorrow people are being affected by climate change, people are dying because of the impacts of climate change. And we're hoping that from this conference we get some real agreements from the world's leaders on several measures, specifically on adaptation and on more funding for adaptation above and beyond the 0.7% aid commitments already. Also on deforestation, and really importantly on negotiations around the post-Kyoto Protocol, and making sure that those negotiations, the world's poorest countries' voices are heard, and that the world's richest countries take the responsibility for historic carbon emissions, take that into account when agreeing the post-Kyoto framework for tackling climate change. So we really hope that at the end of this meeting we don't just see another talking shop where people come together and they agree that this is a huge problem, but that they actually agree it's a huge problem and put in place some of the measures needed to tackle it really urgently.
Would you prefer that this conference was about...
Forests provide an absolutely vital source of livelihood for so many of the poorest people in the world. And I was recently in India and working with some forest user groups in India, and also with Nepal with a fabulous organisation called FECAFUN, which is the Federation of Forest Users in Nepal. And actually what they have found they've been able to do is to continue to use the forest as a source of livelihood, but for the community to take ownership of that forest. So actually they are reforesting the area and using it in not just a sustainable way, but actually a way which is reforesting and not deforesting the area. So they're still able to gain the livelihood from that, but they're actually increasing the size of forest at the same time. And what they're finding, especially in Nepal, is as they are regrowing the forest, then the knock-on impact is fabulous in terms of less flooding, in terms of more wood for fuel and so many other things. The big problem with deforestation is in areas where the forest is no longer owned and used by the community, and where large businesses have ownership and access to the land, and then the use of the forest is seen purely as an economic factor. So the use of the forest has to be seen as a benefit for the community which is living with that forest, or as a benefit for the wider community as a whole, as in the global world, which relies on the forest as a carbon sink and so many other things. So actually I think there are ways to continue for the forest to be seen as a livelihood for so many...
With all big breakthroughs, it will probably take 5-10 years before we see it, but this is a desktop size version, meaning that you can have it like in your house. every person, you'll find maybe in the future, every house is going to be retrofitted with something like this. All the research studies coming through that are related to GMO have caused this. So it's almost like something from the science fiction world, you know, where you're able to point at an object, move a brick. You know, there's those big conspiracy theories about how the pyramids were built and how they managed to move those big blocks. Well, maybe, just maybe, you're looking at a technology that is going to be capable of doing that.
On the local basis, you have what are known as health cities. 100 French cities are part of that network. Of course, 100 cities may not be enough, but it's already a start to prevent additional greenhouse gas emissions by a development of what is known as active mobilities, meaning people walking or cycling to work instead of using cars or public transportation. So you can see it, ladies and gentlemen, we are conducting this struggle on every front. Here in France, but all around Europe. But what is required now is coordination between such efforts worldwide, and we need to have a clear framework. We need to have indicators so as to assess the effectiveness of these measures, but also we need to share tools, and that is the next challenge ahead of us. And after COP21, an ambitious, universal, binding agreement on health, and I do mean on health, will need to be sealed as well.
To see a strong people perspective and the public health perspective in this agreement, and of course all the mitigation measures will have very strong co-benefits for health. The fight against climate change is more than just an environmental question. These were the words of the Honourable Minister Fabius, who was opening the conference. It is essential for nourishing our people, water on earth, safeguard biodiversity, protect our health, fight against poverty and massive migration, avoiding war and encourage peace, and giving a chance to development. Climate change has a serious